I've been in the music industry for 20 years. It's
Yeah,
pretty hard
she's
to
a
hurt my
pro.
feelings at this point.
She's a pro, and
You
it took
know?
me a little while to be a pro about it. I think initially, and there's still some like wacko theories from the beginning. I don't like the last thing I wanted to do is screw this up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, in my mind is like her being so calm, cool, collected, and so just real and understanding about everything that's going on really made me grow up real fast in that aspect of things.
But
Hi, besties. It's Katie Joy. Guess what? The best revenge that you can get after a really hard year or first 6 months of a year, after your ex best friend drags you into a lawsuit and tabloid fodder, making you headlines for something you had nothing to do with, using your name and doing too much, and then having to deal with your best friend allegedly extorting you, threatening to release 10 years of text messages unless you put out a message to support her, getting booed at the Super Bowl, and dealing with all kinds of chaos of being canceled in the world of politics because the president doesn't think you're hot anymore. Taylor Swift is getting the best revenge because she is now engaged to Travis Kelce. Yes. She announced her engagement on Instagram. They did jointly. And she said, your English teacher is marrying the gym teacher, or the gym teacher is marrying the English teacher. A sort of play on the fact that Miss Swift is a poet that loves to write and read literature, and Mr. Kelce is the athletic meathead, I guess. Although I just want to point out, Travis does have a college degree. He does. He really does. And Taylor, for her part, she has an honorary doctorate, but she never went to college because she got her first record deal when she was 15, and she didn't really need to go to college because she had a career blossom and thrive. So these two announced their engagement on Instagram, and everyone is literally going bananas. I don't have a direct line to Taylor's PR company or anyone that knows Taylor directly, so I can only go off what the regs are saying, but they're claiming that she was proposed to by Mr. Kelce this month. Obviously, he cut his hair, so he had longer hair in July, and he cut his hair for training camp, and this photo, he has very short hair. But she was given a ring designed by a Kindred Lubeck of Artifacts Fine Jewelry. The stone is an old mine brilliant cut, which Swift shows off in a series of photos announcing the big news. So apparently the ring was made with an old mine brilliant cut diamond, a rectangle cut diamond, and with antique references. This is all according to people. And she was engaged around a field of flowers, and she apparently wore a $398 pinstripe polo Ralph Lauren altar dress, gold accessories, and tan sandal heels. It's wild that like what she's wearing at her engagement is like there, and they have a link to the dress so that you can buy it through their affiliates. But regardless, so anyway, there's not that many details about when this happened or what. Yesterday it was Blake Ellender Reynolds' birthday, and I think it's amazing that she's announcing this the day after Blake's birthday. I secretly hope she got engaged on Blake's birthday just to like always have that date above Blake. But regardless, one person that will not be invited to the wedding is Blake Lively, and someone who will not be in her wedding party is obviously Blake Lively. But that's okay because Taylor wasn't in Blake's wedding party. They weren't even friends when Blake and Ryan got married, and Ryan and Blake's wedding was on a plantation. So we're going to be safe to say that Taylor and Kelce are not going to get married on a plantation. Neither one of them would be that socially ignorant to do something like that. And I'm sure that the wedding will not be hush hush as secretive as Mr. Reynolds and Blake Lively, who got married and have never even shown a photograph of their wedding, which always makes me wonder, like, are you really married? Are you really married? But Uh, the two of them started dating back in the fall of 2023, and she and Kelsey have been basically like holed up and living together since she got off the Eras tour. The last time she was seen publicly was, well, obviously, in a podcast, and that podcast broke all kinds of records. And she was on her soon to be husband's podcast, and she spoke about getting her master's back. She talked about all of what she's been into lately, which has been baking and cooking and being a good domestic housewife, I guess. Very interesting, honestly. And she's gotten Travis into cooking and baking. Honestly, when she started talking about how she is into sourdough and cooking, I feel like she's like in that nesting mode you get into when you're in love and all you want to do is cook and spend time with your boyfriend and you just want to live in your love bubble. Kind of feel like that's what she and Travis were saying. So the internet is going bananas, and the two of them are so happy together, and no other words about the details of the engagement. So honestly, I think the two of them should are really happy, and I don't even know them, and I'm not the kind of person that gets like overfilled with joy for anyone that gets married or anything like that, but I think it's awesome when someone finds their person, and Travis actually seems like a pretty good guy. And you know what? Sometimes the best guys come from the Midwest, and Travis is from Ohio. So go, Miss Swift, and your Midwestern man. Who's not going to be invited is Blake. And despite the fact that today Blake is posting well wishes for her birthday, it is not her birthday today. In fact, Blake's birthday is August 25th. And earlier today, she posted photographs of people wishing her a happy birthday on her Instagram stories. And then a few hours later, Miss Swift announced her engagement. So people are now incorrectly linking Blake's birthday announcements from friends to it being her birthday. But Blake was born on August 25th, 1987, which you know how I know this? Because parts of her transcripts from her deposition were unsealed. And in it, she said that her name is Blake Ellender Reynolds. And her birth date is August 25th, 1987. And apparently, she has also been an actress for 21 years, since 2004, when she was 17 years old. She's been an actress since she's been 17. So, Jed Wallace's attorney unsealed some parts of her testimony when they all sat down back in July on the 31st. And she said in her deposition that she had heard about Colleen's book prior to agreeing with her being on the film. But in an interview she did about the film, she said she was offered to see the script, but she said she had never heard of Colleen Hoover. So did she lie in her interview or did she lie in the deposition? But what I find most interesting is that during her deposition, when she sat down with Mr. Babcock, Charles Babcock, who represents Jed Wallace, he asked her if in the law that the thousands of people who are witnessing this deposition practice a lot, there is a thing called libel, which is written defamation, disparagement. And then there is slander, which is oral defamation or disparagement. So I'm focusing on written. Is there anything you've seen in writing that you believe that Mr. Wallace has authored that is defamatory, disparaging, or says mean things about you? Pretty simple question. And Blake said, that's happening currently? And they said, well, let's start with currently, sure. Answer, currently, I don't read news about me or go on social media about me. So personally, I don't have knowledge, no. Who believes that Blake Lively doesn't go on social media and read news about herself? And so Babcock says, okay, well, that's as of today. So she says she doesn't know of any news about her, and she has no knowledge of Jed writing any statements that are defamatory of her. None. And then he said, and going backward in time, can you identify the written thing that you believe Mr. Wallace published about you that is defamatory, disparaging, in any way offending to you? Blake's response, a specific article or no? I don't know a specific article. Okay. And it could be a post, anything in writing that you can look at, like, I'm looking at this screen and reading. And you're not aware of anything that he's authored that you can actually see, whether it's a post, an article, or a video, or something like that, correct? Of course, her attorneys the whole time is like, objection, objection, objection. And her response, I can't cite a specific article. My understanding from the documents I received is that he was part of this campaign, which contained a lot of content. But to be able to name one specific article, if that's what you're asking, no. From my understanding from the documents I have received, does anyone get the guess that Blake doesn't know that she's a part of this lawsuit? Do you think that Hudson and Gottlieb are feeding her delusions and making her think that there's this campaign? Or do you think that Reynolds is telling her that all of these things are happening? Because quite honestly, if you're being sued or you're suing someone, you should have a damn good idea of what's going on. You should know what articles you can point to. You should know the exact defamatory statements that were made. You should know and have all of this prepared for when you go to a deposition. And so she's in there going, I heard there was a campaign about me. And so, yeah, this one article, no, there's not any articles I can think of. Babcock says, okay. And you were right to focus on one specific article. I also wanted to focus on one specific author, which would be Mr. Wallace. And are you aware of any specific article that he authored himself, maybe in conjunction with others, but that he authored himself? Hudson, objection. She gives no standing reason for why she's objecting, just saying objection. She's objecting to every question. And she says, with his name on it? No. But I understand his work to be quite clandestine. So I'm not aware of anything that has his name on it. No. Clandestine. Is she using a big word because Taylor Swift uses big words? And then Babcock says, how do you know his work is clandestine? And she said, that's how it's been described to me by everyone that knows him. That everyone who I've spoken to who knows him. It's also what was described in the documents we received, both in the Jones Works documents as well as documents in discovery. The Jones Works documents? You mean Van Zan Sham? Okay. Who described him to you as quite clandestine? You said that people told you that? Who told you that? I don't know that those were the words that were used. Sure. That was the general sort of descriptor or the general idea. Clandestine. Who uses that word? Is this a movie? Something done in secret or secretively, illicit. Kept secret. Oh, so they're saying he's doing illicit things. Okay, anyway. So she can't think of a single thing. She doesn't have a single article. She doesn't know a single defamatory statement made against her by Wallace. So Wallace is the orchestrator of a smear campaign, but she has no proof that any of this was written by him, authored by him, or posted. And the reason why she doesn't know is because he's clandestine. What if it's a video by someone else and he didn't author it? And she says, this is proof. She has no evidence, you guys. So after admitting that she doesn't know of any articles, they go into the timeline later in his questioning. And he says, production started in early May of 23. Is that right? Of the movie It Ends With Us. And she said, the filming itself started, I believe, in May of 23. And he said, okay, was that in California? And she said, no, it was in New Jersey. Oh, I thought everything was in California. Okay, then there was a writer's strike that stopped it in June of 23, correct? Correct, Blake says. And then production resumed maybe on January 5th, 24. Is that right? And Blake says, that sounds correct. And he says, okay, was that also in New Jersey or was that in California? And she said, that was in New Jersey. We shot a couple days in California at the end. I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, was the movie shot anywhere other than New Jersey or California? And she said, I believe they did additional photography and wide shots and inserts, not inserts, but wider shots of scenery in other locations. See, this woman wants you to believe that she edited this film and she doesn't know what to call B-roll. B-roll. B-roll is the film that you use that's just filler. It has wide shots of landscape. It can be cities. It can be streets. It can be homes. It can be nature. It's random footage you insert, but it's called B-roll. She literally calls it wide shots and inserts. B-roll, Blake. B-roll. Do you know where these locations were? I don't. You weren't involved in them? They just shot them other places? Yes. Okay, so you do admit that you had absolutely nothing to do with the principal photography or filming, Blake. Wonderful. Glad we got that on the record here. So he then goes on to her second amended complaint, and he asks her about astroturfing. It's about astroturfing. He says, "What is astroturfing?" And she said, "My understanding of astroturfing is when a conversation or sentiment is inorganic and unlike a grassroots marketing campaign. It is fake in that it is a sentiment that is where there is a particular person, group, or organization behind it." So she has no clue. Okay, and you say in this complaint that the coordinated astroturfing campaign to discredit and bury Miss Lively. What do you mean by bury you? The astroturfing campaign was meant to bury you? Question. Hudson says objection. She says, question, do you know what that means? What is meant by that? And Blake says, I do. And what is meant by that? They were descriptives that were used by Justin, Jen, and Melissa. The term bury, she wants. He wants to feel like she can be buried. Okay, there is no text message of him saying that. That's just what Jen relayed. Okay, and then Melissa said, we can bury her. And then she also said, but we can't do that, and we won't. Okay, and so that's why the word was chosen. This is going to seem like a facetious and silly question, but you didn't take that to mean that they were going to physically bury you, just they are going to reputationally bury you? Is that how you took it or not? When they said that, I felt reputationally. When Steve Sarowitz said that there would be 2 dead bodies by the time he was done with us, yeah, I considered that to be literal. Oh my God. She didn't even hear this man say it. She has no clue if he said it. This is like triple hearsay. He's talking, and according to her quote, it had to do with Hamas and Israel. And he said, you thought you might be in physical jeopardy? Question. And Blake says, you, as a mother, you feel like anything could be possible in those moments. It's terrifying. Okay, wait a minute. How does being a mother make you feel terrified that Steve Sarowitz would say that? Because it has nothing to do with her kids. Putting aside the physical jeopardy, was the reference to burying and 2 dead bodies inclusive of reputational injury or not? And she says, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Then a few minutes later, the last excerpt says, when Mr. Freeman allegedly made these defamatory comments on behalf of Mr. Wallace, did he make them prior to that lawsuit, which has now been dismissed, being sent to New York? Objection. And then Babcock says, how about that? And then Attorney Hudson says, objection. She said, my understanding is that Mr. Freeman's harmful statements started as soon as the first case started, which would be mine. So December of 24. Oh, so Friedman didn't start talking and defending his clients until you filed a lawsuit? Whoa, mind blown. Okay, the premiere of It Ends With Us, the film was on August 6th of 24. Is that right? She says, I don't know the exact date, but that sounds correct. Okay. And then he says, if you go to the 4th page, next to the last page, it says Tuesday, August 6th, 7 p.m. In the end, It Ends With Us premiere, location AMC, Lincoln Square, blah, blah, blah. Does this refresh your recollection as to when the premiere was? And she says, sorry, I wasn't there. This is 89, 81 to Tuesday, August 6th. It Ends With Us premiere. Yes. Okay. And the film's release was August 9th. Is that right? In the United States, yes. It released at different times in different international territories. But for the sake of our conversation today, when I've talked about the day the film was released, I was talking about August 9th. So she claims the day that she started getting a lot of negative publicity coincides with when the film came out. That's weird. Maybe fans were reacting to what they saw. I'm just saying. Okay, and you testified earlier that this was when you first became aware of the negative argument or the negative article about you, right? And she said, no, not an article, no. It felt no, not one article. So Wallace issued not one article. He wrote nothing. And she admits that the breadth of her negative publicity started when the film was premiering. But her negative press was starting before the film premiered. And she actually inserted her husband into the drama by telling a reporter on the red carpet that her husband wrote the rooftop scene. And then that started a whole bunch of press. And then her publicist speaks to Leslie, her publicist, Leslie Sloan, speaks to Daily Mail and starts leaking stuff about, it's all Justin's fault for why Blake decided to unfollow. And everyone wanted to know why Blake unfollowed. So really, Blake started everything by unfollowing and then isolating the cast from him and not including him in the promotion. The worst choice they could have made was doing that. They should have all just been adults, Blake and Ryan, and included everyone in promotion and put their differences aside for the sake of a movie. But apparently their egos got in the way. But this is damning. And, I know that Gottlieb responded to the motion for sanctions, but it just feels like irrelevant to even talk about because you don't start attacking the other client's attorney if you have a winning case. You stand on your case. And when you have to make sideshows and start making the other attorney the enemy, it tells me that you're not confident in your case because you're using things to distract. And truthfully, as I'm reading this, I truly believe that she is, in a way, being completely railroaded by her attorneys, and they are feeding her delusions by entertaining her belief that this happened. And they're milking it fraudulently, knowing they have no evidence. That's my opinion. Because if you're taking this case and you're letting people believe something happened that did not happen, and you're doing all of these things, and then your client is sitting down going, yeah, I don't know about any articles. I can't point to anything he said. Okay, Blake. So Blake's shocking testimony proves there's no evidence against Judd Wallace, and Taylor Swift gets the last laugh announcing her engagement one day after Blake Ellender Reynolds' 38th birthday. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.